how's it hanging, YouTube? Peter here, your Ginger Joy the Geek. Welcome back to the channel. And today we are doing part 3 of our top 5 horror films, scary stories. It feels silly saying top 5 because we've done, 20, I think, films so far or something. Anyway, we are joined as usual by my good friend, Efren. How are you doing, Efren?
Hey guys, how's it going? I'm here in cloudy San Diego.
Cloudy San Diego.
Yeah, the last 2 days has been cloudy and not hot at all, and I love it. So,
What a shame. What a shame for you. We're in sub-zero England.
oh no.
We've also got everybody's favorite attention-seeking geek. How are you doing?
And in 3D.
very, yeah. Moving on. And this time we're joined by James T Keegan, who was away when we filmed the first part. But it's nice to have you back, James.
Heyo, what's up?
Heyo. How are you doing? Are you well?
All is good, man. I'm ready to talk about some spooky movies.
Good stuff, good stuff. So what we're going to be doing tonight, guys, is we're going to be continuing on with our favorite horror stroke scary stories. I'll put it back on, Ben.
Shockingly accurate.
Yeah. So we're going to be continuing on with that. Unfortunately, James, as you know, you missed the last little session we did, and I know when you were sending some of your picks, some of your favorites had already been picked on. So you can perhaps talk to a little bit at the end of the recording about some of the ones that we've missed from you.
Yeah.
But like I said, this is top 5 number 3. So going over again our favorite horror stroke scary movies. What's Ben doing? What happened there? This is tremendous. 3 years into COVID and you still not learned to switch your microphone on.
Yeah, you're on mute.
The fly. There was a fly.
Jeff Goldblum. Was it like
maybe, or maybe it's just like an atmospheric fly to add to the kind of horror vibe of the show.
Very good.
So, I'm sorry, but
so just to remind everybody, we are doing 4 of these. They're going to be released every Wednesday in October. We've already released parts 1 and 2, and 3 and 4 will be coming out shortly. This is obviously part 3. So what we're going to do is just put on screen some images of the picks that myself and the gents have had, and we're just going to gently talk around them. So first off, an eclectic selection there with some very interesting picks, I think. We'll start, shall we, with Efren. Efren, tell a little bit about Rosemary's Baby.
So Rosemary's Baby came out in 1968. It's an American psychological horror film written and directed by Roman Polanski and starring Mia Farrow, John Cassavetes, Ruth Gordon, among others. Basically, this film follows a young woman, soon to be pregnant wife of Manhattan, who comes to suspect that her elderly neighbors are members of a satanic cult. So her husband gets indoctrinated into this cult, and then they're trying to have a baby, this couple, but then one night she gets drugged and doozy, boozy. She doesn't exactly sure what's happening, and there's a demon basically impregnates her, and the demon happens to be the devil. So she's trying to have an offspring, and everybody in the complex seems to be in on it, and it goes from there. It's like I said, it came out in 1969, so there's just a lot of things that you don't really see, but it's just an eerie film, and it just shows her think she's paranoid that something is wrong, with the baby. There's something happened. She has dreams that she was abused or sexually abused by this demon, and sure enough, it was. And then towards the end of the movie, she's in horror because her child is half demon, but at the end, her mother instincts kick in, and she takes care of her baby, and basically that's how the movie ends. Like I said, it came out in 1968, a long time ago. But since we started talking about these horror things, all these bad memories keep on popping up in my head now. And this is one of the movies that really bothered me when I was a kid. So I picked it.
It's a great pick. Have you guys seen Rosemary's Baby?
I've not seen it.
I have, but I was very young, so I don't remember. Yeah. I remember a couple of bits of imagery from it, but not
You Are the Baby.
Yeah.
That's entirely possible.
I mean, I've seen it, and it's one of those ones I think where it's not it's not overtly graphic. It's not in terms of horror. You don't see blood and guts and stuff. It's the kind of the undercurrent of everything that's going on and the sinister nature of it all. It reminds me a little bit of Wicker Man in terms of this feeling of everybody being in on it and one person kind of being alone with all this craziness around them. Really, it's a great pick. It is a great pick. Good story. Okay, James, shall we come to you next?
Yes, this is a recent one, and I think one of those kind of, as people say now, like elevated horror movies. But this is the Invisible Man. It's the 2020 movie. So it's directed by Lee Wannell, who was kind of James Wan's partner in crime. He co-created the Saw series. Did Insidious 3, I believe, which at the time I remember thinking, geez, he's not a very good director. But then he went on to do a film called Upgrade, which is sort of like almost like Venom, but it's
I think
lower
I've seen
budget,
that.
really stylish. And that was an incredible movie. So since then, I thought he was a good director, and this definitely solidified that he's a guy with a lot of style. But it's kind of a modern twist on the classic Universal Invisible Man, with more of like a kind of a tech, almost like Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg style. Like if they could build a suit, and there's kind of a theme of kind of abuse. If oh, you never know. And it amazingly, rather than like a potion that guy takes, it's this suit. Like it made it look like it could be realistic. It's the suit with all these camera lenses on it, and they reflect what's around them. And there's just some incredible tense sequences. Like I think the opening 10 minutes of this movie, it's the main character's sneaking out of her abusive husband's house. And it's like the most like hard sticking out 10 minutes I think I've ever had in a cinema screen. But it's just an incredibly stylish and a unique kind of take on a classic story, and I absolutely adored this movie when I saw it.
Yeah, I went into this one not necessarily expecting a great deal, but then absolutely loved it. I thought it was a great and a very graphic at times, but not in, kind of graphically showing an abusive relationship and things like that. And the one scene that sticks out for me because it was such a shock was the scene where she sat with her sister having dinner midway through the movie, and then the knife gets picked up.
Yes, yeah.
Was it a sister or a friend? I can't remember.
Her friend's daughter,
yeah.
I think.
Yeah. It was just incredible. Ben, have you seen this one?
Yes, I have. Yeah, also a big fan. It's a shame that when they were sort of planning to do this whole Universal Monsters kind of universe, it's
universe.
a shame that wasn't part of it, because I think it would have been a great kind of reinvention, but also it by the end of the film it felt like it could become its own kind of icon, really, the suit. And everything like that. If we saw it again in the second film and kind of saw more of that, of how it was made and everything like that, I think it could have, that kind of GIMP-like, sort of suit could have become an icon in its own right. So, yeah, just incredible performances in this film. As James said, very stylish, very just felt like a very smooth film, if that makes sense. I don't know, but yeah, very very tense and sort of strangely kind of uplifting by the end. You're like,
yeah, it's very good. Have you seen it, Efren?
Yeah.
Have you seen it, Efren?
Oh no, I haven't seen it, but it has to do with the Invisible Man, correct?
Yes, it's
I was just thinking,
yes, Efren, with the title.
Yeah, so I was just thinking, if anybody could become invisible, who knows what your mind would lead to do? You're not going to be caught. I mean, we're all.
Well, in this movie, it's sort of an abusive husband who he fakes his death, and then he tortures his ex-wife by like kind of playing tricks on her, and it's shot quite amazingly. Like I remember in one of the interviews, Lee Wannell said that the camera like treats the Invisible Man like he's not invisible. Like it will follow to you nothing. You don't see anything, but it's following him. And there's like scenes where this scene he's there and this scene he's not, and they don't tell you this. It's sort of a behind the scenes thing. And I love when movies have that kind of layer depth to them.
I think the
definitely.
paint, when the paint gets poured on him for the first time, that's the first time we see like a glimpse of what he could look like. And I remember being so kind of like, oh, what's all those like dots? Like so freaked out by like what actually, you know, what's going on here? And just full of intrigue. Very cool.
I think it ties into, you know, we've talked a lot about different horror and the different kinds of horror, whether it's kind of supernatural or gore or whatever. This ties into something that you know, we're all probably experienced with, that not quite knowing if there's somebody in the dark next to you, or if you hear a creak in the house, is there somebody, you know, there, kind of thing. It's just, it's terrifying. It is a great film, and I think a great modern take on a classic.
I gotta check it out now. So.
Yeah, definitely should do.
Yeah, check it out.
Jeffrey
Ben,
Bezos at the end of your bed.
You've gone for a classic, Ben.
Well, which one? Because you've
I've picked Freddy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I picked Freddy.
I also picked Freddy.
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay, so I picked Jason then in this case, who, of course, I am sporting my get up this evening. So Friday the 13th as a kind of franchise, really. 1980 was the original one. And of course, it sort of weirdly launched the career of or helped launch the career of Kevin Bacon. But a lot of people forget that first film, there is Jason, but not right till the very end. So Pamela Voorhees, Jason's mum, is of course the the sort of antagonist of that first film. But for me, the franchise and the love of the franchise is centered around the boogeyman, which is, of course, sort of Jason. So from that very moment that we sort of meet him as this deformed child, sort of half corpse, leaping out of the lake and dragging in his victim, all the way up until, I guess the sort of silliness of Jason X and Freddy versus Jason, and how he's sort of almost become this mythological character now. My favorite Jason is probably, I really love part 2, because part 2 is essentially just the idea of, this kind of twisted, deranged hillbilly, sort of, and the look and everything sort of reflected that. It was a lot more believable in a way, but part 3 is my favorite of all the films. I absolutely love part 3. I love the look of Jason in that film. There's 12 films, so 2019 was the reboot, and there were rumors recently that there was going to be a series, but unfortunately I think that fell through. I've actually got a friend of mine who managed to get some of the concept masks from what the series was going to be, and it looked really good. I really like the designs and things like that. But Richard Brooker is my favorite Jason. But I think probably the most famous one, and probably a close second, is of course Kane Hodder, who was his first one. Jason Takes New York, I think.
No, it's the New Blood 7. So he did 7, 8, 9,
and 8 is New York, is it?
Yeah, 8.
Yeah.
Jason Takes Manhattan. Yeah,
just punching people's heads off. Absolutely superb. But awful, when you watch some of them back, really, really bad films. But they're just so, it's just so kind of tongue in cheek. It really kind of they're like such little time capsules of like the 80s and stuff. So I just really enjoy the kind of aesthetic, and just the idea. I love a monster, I love the idea of this kind of mindless monster who's kind of bordering on kind of immortal. I love that and the design of Jason and everything like that just really speaks to me. So that's why I picked Friday the 13th.
Tremendous, amazing pick. And when you were talking there, Ben, I'm kind of kicking myself because you mentioned this kind of hillbilly look, and I know we've all being very, I think, quick to find lots of horror films we'll love. But that obviously means that you forget about some that you don't mention. And as soon as you said Hillbilly, I thought to myself, I've forgotten to even talk about things like the Wrong Turn franchise or Hills Have Eyes, which are Wrong Turn. I remember going to see that in the cinema because it had the girl from Angel. She played Faith, and it was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal movie. But that's that based on reality almost. You know, could you wander into the woods and find these nutcases?
Another great example of that is Wolf Creek, kind of that in Australia, you know, like, but but I love the dungarees and just the sack over with just the one eye sort of cut out. Like, I love that look, and I love the design of when they peeled that off as well, and he's kind of got the like scraggly ginger hair and his kind of a bit of facial hair. Like, it's a very interesting looking Jason. Obviously, as he's gone on and got kind of, you know, brought back from the dead and things like that, he's kind of become more and more of a zombie, you know, facially and stuff. So, but I quite like that idea of just the big kind of bald head and, you know, the wonky eye and stuff like that. Tremendous
franchise. And James, I know you're a huge fan of this series.
Huge. I've had the pleasure of meeting Kane Hodder, and he's fantastic. I have
he's terrifying though, right? Like,
absolutely. Most people who get photos with him get him choking them. Like, that's a big thing when people meet him. But like the Jason Takes Manhattan, I think one of the most iconic posters of all time of Jason like slashing through the I Heart New York sign. Three is definitely up there for me because I remember Channel 4 had a 3D week more than 10 years ago, and they were giving 3D glasses out at like shops. And I remember sitting down, they had Friday the 13th Part 3, and I remember sitting down watching it with the 3D glasses at home, and I loved it. So that one's definitely up there for me. But I think 6 is probably the one I love the most. It's almost like a precursor to Scream. It's takes the kind of tongue-in-cheekness a step further, and there's a self-awareness to it. And
that with the paintball is.
Yes, yeah. That's the first one that Jason's like a zombie in. So I really love Jason Lives. I think that's probably my favorite.
Good stuff. Efren, are you a fan of these
that
movies?
one as well with the utility belt.
I have I have a NECA Jason I got from that one because that's my favorite look. Yeah.
I've seen the first couple of Jasons that came out, but after that I just didn't see them. But I know, I mean, he's like in our subconscious all the time. He's always going to be around. Ben, you said there was a reboot a little while ago, 2019. So anything before that they didn't mention at all. It's not canon or anything like that. It's just completely new.
Well, they rebooted it. Was Freddy versus Jason before 2009?
So Freddy versus Jason was 2003, and then came the both franchises got rebooted. So the remake is more the first 4 movies kind of condensed, but then taking kills from the whole series. And a lot of people don't like that movie. I don't see why.
I like that.
I don't see why a fan of that series wouldn't love it, because it is sort of a celebration of the whole.
I don't think I've seen that one. I might have to go and check that one out.
I know there's going to be a new Jason movie coming up. They showed it, and they say the end. I don't think this series is ever going to end. I think they're going to wait a little while, and for the next generation of horror fans, they're going to reintroduce the character or continue with them. I don't think it's.
Are you sure you're not thinking of Michael Myers with Halloween Ends?
Yes.
Because there's Jason's rights have been kind of stuck in hell. There's been lawsuits and everything. So
all right, now
yes.
Efren is just a passenger for these horror videos. He is just a unwilling passenger. Jason, that
wasn't Jason on Friday the 13th, though, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what did you just say, James? What?
Halloween.
Michael Myers.
Halloween.
The white mark, you know,
whereas Jason is
though, right? Halloween was Jason, correct?
No,
Halloween's Michael Myers.
Michael.
I quit.
Oh my God, I'm so confused. Okay, I'll see you guys later.
Okay, moving on. Just to mention, by the way, guys, because I know some of you read comic books as well. There's a tremendous comic book series called Maniac in New York.
I've read that.
Yes,
I've got the first graphic novel. It's superb. I'll send it to you if you want to watch it. Read it, Ben. But it's basically, I don't know how they're getting away with it. It's basically Jason.
Yeah,
it's exactly the same aesthetic. the mask and everything like that. It's really good series.
They did volume 2 already. Also, I read.
All right,
Yes,
I haven't
yes.
seen that one yet.
I'd be down for them doing, like, if we're not, if Jason's rights are being back and forth and stuff like that, I'd be fine with getting a Maniac in New York film.
Yeah.
The only thing is that it's modern and it's kind of horror on the subway and stuff, and I just don't know how that would be received right now, you know, with current kind of climate and stuff. But we'll see. But I know Jason Blum has been trying to acquire the rights. I think he's actually come out and said that he would love to reinvent, you know, Jason and stuff. So we'll see.
Good stuff. So I picked Freddy, as did Ben and as did James. So when I've been looking at this, a lot of the horror that's stuck in my mind is stuff that I remember watching when I was a kid, and how it's kind of stayed with us and scarred us. And probably as much like you just described there a little bit with Jason, Ben, if I went back and probably watched some of those original movies, I'd probably think, well, why on earth, you know, it's not the best or whatever. But there are just scenes and things that really have stayed with us. And Freddy's, well, just everything about Freddy's being one of them. So obviously it's from the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, started off in 1984 with Wes Craven. I hadn't realised that Johnny Depp was in the first Nightmare movie.
Very first movie role.
Yeah. So there's been a whole host of movies. I think we're up to number 9 or something now, and he's obviously had his crossover with Jason and been reinvented on a couple of occasions, I think. There's just something about the knives on the hand that freak us out. And I think, again, in my memory, it was probably one of the most gory horrors I'd seen at the time. I can vividly remember is there a scene where he strips someone's veins and he's kind of using them as a puppet?
It's one of my favorite kills.
I still can't look at that. If I watch that movie now, I look away. I can't even.
Freaks us out, you know.
It makes your willy shrink, doesn't it? Like it's proper cringe.
It does. So it's a real scary thing. And I think the concept of it, when you're young and you're thinking about the movies, you know, that terrifying thing of when you're lying at bed thinking, Christ, if I go to sleep, this could be real. And you've got no control over that because you have got to sleep. So I remember after watching the first Freddy movie, literally trying to will myself not to sleep because I was literally petrified, you know. Other thing about this franchise, we talked the last time about how I think music and songs and that kind of stuff really kind of hammers home the horror and the noises and stuff. With Freddy, it's that tune, you know, the 1-2, Freddy's coming for you.
I thought I was going to do the theme tune, you know, the ding, ding, ding.
Oh,
ding.
that as well. But it's the theme tune, you know, the little tune.
Yeah,
that
the little girls.
Singing.
It's playground.
Just sticks with us. Yeah. What about you guys? So I know, like I say, I know a couple of you guys wanted to pick Freddy. So we'll start with you, James. Tell us a little bit about Freddy from your point of view.
The first thing of Freddy I'd seen was Freddy versus Jason. I was reading a magazine and I saw it and it looked like that movie was sort of promoted as this, like almost like a wrestling match, like, you know, it's Freddy versus Jason, who will take the belt, you know. So like as an 8-year-old, it looked quite cool. So I had my dad rent it and I got about 15 minutes in because the opening is very Freddy centric and there's a bit where a little girl turns to the camera and she has no eyes, and I just turned it off and I screamed crying and I couldn't watch anymore. And going back watching it later, it's a lot of it's very tongue in cheek, but he's as iconic as it gets, I think, in terms of horror characters, and was quite refreshing at the time, I'd imagine, in that he has a personality, he talks and he teases, and that's something we have now a lot with, like, you know, Chucky as well and others. But it's Wes Craven's just a mastermind, and I think really struck something deep with people with this character.
I think you've said that there, and it's really struck true in my mind. Thinking that's one of the other terrifying things, that Freddy was having fun with it. Do you know what I mean? He was enjoying terrifying and killing and that's you think, oh Christ, yeah. Ben, what about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is the selling point for me, is that he is having fun, and he is almost kind of mocking people as he's doing these horrific things. Like it just goes to show the credit of like good casting, like, because Robert Englund ultimately that one decision, and he wasn't even the first choice. I think David Warner, from Tron.
Oh yeah,
he was the first choice. So like it's amazing to think that, because now it's almost like Michael is a mask, you can have different Michaels. Jason is a mask, you can have different Jasons, but like it's nearly impossible to think of anyone else as Freddy, just because of the sort of the what Robert Englund sort of brought to it. So like I actually was lucky enough to meet Robert, and I was sporting probably one of my favorite cosplays I've ever done, because I fully invested in like a silicone mask that I've never really done before. I used to have like a latex one, and I bought a silicone one. So this is
I'm back, bitch.
Tremendous.
That's so cool, man.
And it's one of those, like I was speaking about this this week in Metropolis, but it was one of those cosplays where like it was like a transformative experience putting on the gear. So massive fan. I liked the idea of the reboot. I liked the idea that they were going to kind of take it more of a serious route, because when you break it down, this was a child abductor, killer, who was given kind of these immortal powers, by demons down below or whatever. Like it's all pretty sinister. So I like the idea, and they cast Jackie O'Haley, who plays like a sex offender in that Little Children film or whatever.
He's amazing in that movie.
So it's like on paper that was all going to be really like terrifying stuff, and it just falls hideously flat, that film. They do a lot of CG in it, where they kind of recreate what was practical effects in the original film with CG, and it just removes all the charm, all the kind of the reality from it. And it was a flop. So I guess now, if you are, because obviously Robert's he's come out and said he doesn't want to do it all, again.
Yeah, but did you see who because he'd come out and said that if anyone was going to take over, he'd want Kevin
Mr. Bacon. Yes, yeah.
I could see that, mind. I could see that.
I could see it, and I think Kevin Bacon's kind of got that mix of like dramatic and comedic skills. This might sound like crazy, but like I used to imagine like Jeff Goldblum or someone really kind of bizarre. Like I'd like to see a comedian, someone really comedic in the role.
I'm picturing Jeff Goldblum, Freddy.
No, like Freddy in the later movies is almost like a Looney Tunes character.
Freddy coming for you. Like, can you imagine? You're well creepy. But yeah, I love this character's immortal, and looking forward to whatever happens next with the franchise.
What about you, Efren? Are you a fan of Freddy?
I've seen like the first couple of movies, but that's about it. It just we mentioned this before. I just think it's my upbringing. When I see scary movies, I'm not drawn to it like you guys. I think these are iconic characters. Don't get me wrong, and I like seeing them, but I like just seeing like the little video clips about the movie, and then that's good enough for me, man. It's just but hearing you guys talk about it, I go, God, now I want to watch these movies.
Amazing.
Make a little horror geek out of you.
Yeah.
Efren.
Almost
just
when we do our videos, I'm gonna be dressed all in black all the time. I'm gonna be wearing like all serious looking like this videos.
Just before we move on from Nightmare on Elm Street, there's it's my favorite documentary. It's called Never Sleep Again. It's about 4 hours and just takes you through the development of each and every movie. And it's one of the easiest documentaries to watch. It's so much fun. So I really recommend that one.
Never Sleep Again. Okay, thanks.
Also, have you ever seen have you ever seen the TV series?
Yeah,
Like he's barely
Yeah.
in it. Freddy's Nightmares. Like
Freddy's Nightmares.
the majority of it is absolutely awful, but there are a couple of like really good ones. It's like an anthology thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
But one episode is his trial.
And to be honest, that kind of a series would work superbly these days. I think, put that on Netflix or something like that. It would be tremendous.
Yeah.
Well, and potentially, Robert might be persuaded just to put his makeup on for a couple of days, just to film the intro and the outro for every episode or whatever.
Like the Crypt Keeper kind of thing.
Yeah,
I think he'll. That's how he is in the show, but I think he'll fully come back for one movie. They'll do like a Halloween, like a direct sequel to the original, and he'll do it.
Because New Nightmare for me was genius. Like the whole meta kind of commentary and stuff. It was so ahead of its time. Like I absolutely. It was like the new Scream film. Like that wanted to be as clever as New Nightmare, but it just wasn't. Like for me.
Oh, don't! You're going to upset James. Moving on to Scream. James, why don't you pick that? Why don't you pick that gauntlet right up?
So from one Wes Craven property to another, Scream really just saved horror. I think kind of in the early 90s, a lot of these franchises were going down the tubes, taking a more comedic route, and I think Scream brought it back in a really clever way.
I'll do some scary movie.
You like scary movies?
Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
I don't know.
You have to have a favorite.
Just one of the most likable, I think, cast of characters of survivors in it. And it's a testament that a lot of them are still with the series now as it's gone through kind of various stages. But one that every film has its own unique kind of twist to it, where it's the second one's a play on sequels, the third one's trilogies, and then reboots and elevated horror. And even like, I know 3 is one that people don't care much for, but it's still Scream, so I still love it.
Is that the one where they're in the Hollywood or something?
They're in Hollywood, so yeah, it's like they're on the set of a movie based on their lives, and so it takes that kind of meta thing, but just insanely clever. And I had the chance to go see the first one in the cinemas again. For a long time, 2 was my favorite. I always liked 2 more. I think that kind of opening kill in the cinema always really stuck with me. But watching the original again in the cinema, it was just one of my favorite experiences I've had there, and it was just incredible, the kind of the atmosphere in the screening. I just love this series with all my heart. Also, I think one of the most iconic, another really iconic look for a killer.
What are your views on the TV series? I've watched the first season, but I haven't seen the second season.
I watched the first 2 seasons, and it's its own thing, isn't it? It wasn't until the third one. I think the third one's a reboot,
right?
And that has Kenny. What's his name? Kenny. He voices Ghostface. Not Kenny. Roger L. Jackson. He does the voice in that, and it's the movie. It's the movie look, but the first two actually have their own kind of design for the mask, and it's also I think really haunting, and I think as its own thing that could have been quite cool. It's not terrible. Definitely, there's worse. There's worse out there. Certainly, it's going for that kind of Pretty Little Liars vibe.
Yeah,
and I think
very
successful at that. Yeah,
I'm a big fan of the Scream franchise. I kind of, it sounds a silly thing to say, but that was almost entry level horror. And when I was kind of just starting to come into horror, it was at the cinema. Everybody was going to see Scream, and it's a really engaging story. I like movies that keep you jumping and keep you on the edge of your seat. So with Jason, Freddy, whatever, you know who the bad guy is. With Scream, you don't. You're always guessing.
That's the whodunit aspect. Another amazing aspect of them that the others don't really have.
Yeah, I know you're a huge fan of the latest movie. I'm not so much, but I am excited that they're going to be doing another one. So I'm looking forward to that. Efren, what about you? Go on, say it, Ben. Hello, Simi.
You like scary movies?
That sounded slightly dirty. I didn't like that.
It's Seth Rogen, apparently, is the kid.
Yeah, see through the eyes.
Efren, just in case you're wondering, that's the mask from Jason. All right?
I know Scream. I've seen Scream. Now you guys are making fun of me, man.
You've seen Scream?
Huh? Oh, yeah. I really enjoyed it. I think I enjoy it more than other movies that have, when it has to do like with demons and devils, like that's the kind I try to stay away from. But Halloween, it was just suspenseful. You don't know what was going to happen next, who the killer was. And I mean, I really enjoyed the series. I read an article once that, you know, Drew Barrymore was in the first one and kind of resurrected her career, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know, she was like killed right off the beginning, you know. But I haven't seen the newer ones that came out like a couple years ago. But I hopefully I will, you know. But I love this series. It's just like the nervousness when I see this series, the movie, just like heart thumping. You know, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? That's what grabs my attention.
I think, I mean, it's worth seeing the latest one, Efren, but I think there's loads of great kills, isn't it, in the Scream movies? But the one that always sticks in my mind is, I think, Scream 2, when the guy's in the bathroom and he hears the little boy and he puts his head against the cubicle kind of door and it goes, whoa. Yeah. Ben, what about yourself? You a big Scream fan?
I am, yeah. I don't know whether I would kind of put it ahead of my monsters like, you know, Leatherface and Jason and Michael and stuff, like, but just because Ghostface is always someone, you know, and it's very much kind of rooted in reality, so I don't have that like fantasy element as much. But at the same time, like what James said, like the design is so instantly recognizable, and it's just incredible how they could kind of come up with such an iconic look. And you know, like I what I like about Ghostface is that it often, because it is just someone who's kind of untrained and, you know, a bit sloppy, like he's always falling all over the shop, and it's very kind of sketchy and scrappy, and like I like that. The voice again is of course, you know, the brilliant, like those phone calls, and again, just like Wes Craven's genius, like Ephraim mentioned Drew Barrymore, like she was obviously featured in all of the promo material and posters and stuff like that, with no one realizing that she was going to be killed in that opening scene. So it's like, that is such a ballsy move, like especially for its time. And yeah, as James said, just kind of breathed life into the horror genre. Like, I do think that the more we've got, the less clever they've been. And I was almost hoping from this kind of the latest one, like I almost want to see the film now, the film that is in Scream. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
like like I thought this newest film was just how great it would have been if it was just Stab, and they literally just kind of like recast everyone and called it Stab and everything like that. Like, I think that's something Wes Craven, I could see him doing himself if he was still here. But that being said, there's still some great performances in the newest ones, like some really like brilliant young actors that again have kind of given it potentially a new bit of life. And I'm sort of interested to see where one of the character arc goes with the links to the original and stuff like that. Massive Matthew Lillard fan, so he's my favorite Ghostface.
I'm with you, Ben. I'm going to upset James. The last one was good, but it didn't blow us away, and I was waiting for Matthew to come back in some form or some way, or I don't know. I just the end reveal, I think I was expecting more or different.
But if it was exactly what you expected, would that not have been a bit? Oh, it's predictable, you know.
But it was.
I kind of wanted something so off the wall. Like, I kind of wanted a reveal that was just like, oh, it wasn't unexpected enough. I don't think. I'm with you, Peter. But I've got to say though, you know, that opening scene of Scream 2.
Yeah.
You know, that could never happen now, because Will Smith would get up and smack the shit out of Ghostface.
It's very true. Very true. Yeah. Moving on. Efren. It's like Ben on a bad
my choice is Salem's Lot. It's a miniseries that came out in 1979. I remember this watching as a kid. Actually, it was a novel from the same movie from Stephen King. And basically what it has to do is this one person comes back to his hometown, and he's looking into this house that supposedly is haunted. You know, there's like murders happening in this house. And little by little, citizens of this town are being, are dying and it happens to, in this house that's, he tries to buy it, but somebody already bought it, and the person that bought it, his co-owner is a vampire. So little by little, they start taking over the city. Everybody starts turning into vampires. The writer, the lead actor was, what was his name? David Soul. And he fights off the demons. I mean, the vampires. Little by little, he destroys the house. But it just shows, it's just the darkness of the movie. Like a Stephen King book. You're waiting to see what happens next. And towards the end of the movie, or the end of the series, it was a 2-part series on ABC. Like I said, in the late 70s. They kill all the vampires, but some of them still survive, and they're after the 2 main characters still, after they leave the city, the town that he grew up in, and it just basically ends there. And it has to do with vampires, which always grabs my attention. And like I said, this is like from the 1970s. These movies came out on ABC, and I look at it now, I go, wow, man, these are very deep movies that came out in that era. Like, I thought maybe these movies would be better set like for Netflix, or Hulu, stuff like that. But there's that type of scariness that I don't think, the censorship would hold it back from being shown nowadays.
Superb. I love the design of the vampires. It's very Nosferatu, isn't it? Instead of your kind of your Draculas and all that kind of jazz. Have you guys seen Salem's Lot?
Nope.
Ben?
I haven't seen it kind of as an adult, but the imagery from it, like I remember, I feel like that face right there used to freak the shit out of me as a kid, and I think so much so that I haven't watched the film because it terrified me that much, I think. But it is something I'd like to revisit, just because I know how kind of iconic it is, in terms of those vampire films. And yeah, as you say, like very cool kind of Nosferatu style design.
Stop, holy man! You can do nothing against the master.
It's obvious that all these horror movies are set in the dark, because that brings out a lot of fear in people. The darkness. You don't know what's around the corner.
Absolutely. I'm not sure if there's been a remake of this from more recently than the 70s. I don't know if Rob Lowe did something with it a while ago.
Now that you mention it, there is a remake of it, but it's always been like shelved. First of all, it was supposed to come out in 2022, but or before that, but then COVID hit.
Recently.
Yeah, I mean, it was supposed to come out in 2022, but because of COVID and I read about that also. They're just they're pushing it back. They're supposed to be on TV. Then they're thinking it could be a movie, and who knows? It's in limbo right now. I'm not sure when this movie or series is ever going to come out again.
Good stuff. Okay, I'll do mine next then before we go on to Ben. Anybody seen this? The Mad Death TV series?
I've never heard of it.
So I had completely forgot about this. This is a TV series from 1981, 3-parter. And it wasn't until we were talking the last time we were talking about horror. I can't remember if it was on camera or if it was at the end of the show. And Ben, you were telling us a bit of a story about animals and things. And this jumped straight into my mind. So this was
I hope it was after the show, because that was an embarrassing story.
This was a 3-part series that the BBC put out, because at the time in the 80s, the big kind of fear seemed to be rabies. And there was all kinds of public announcements and all this kind of jazz. So they did this 3-part series about what if rabies struck the UK and devastated the UK. Now, I'm going to show you the trailer for it. Now, the reason it's stuck with us, now bear in mind it's from the 80s, so it hasn't aged well. Okay. Right. The special effects are literally basil brush being thrown out a window and stuff like that.
Oh, that's amazing. That sounds amazing.
Boom,
boom. But what I want you to listen to is the singing in it, because this was the opening to every episode, and it goes back to what I talked about before about things that freak us out. So this is the Mad Death trailer.
There is nothing to fear. This must have been in the country for months.
All animals to be shot on sight. One down.
Oh, come!
Oh my god, that got me
That
so bad at the end.
That was a roller coaster. It's like this weird mishmash of like hokey and genuinely chilling. Like it's
So, but think about it. So this was the 80s. That was on national TV, and literally, it's only been shown once. You can buy it on DVD. But they literally show you all the way through them putting animals down and shooting dogs and things. And there's this basically crowds of rabies-infused dogs attacking kids and stuff like that. And the theme tune was all things bright and beautiful, but sang in that kind of horrible, bloody awful. Honestly, awful. I was terrified. I don't even know why I watched it.
I hate like whispers, like listening to whispers. Like, you know that Michael Jackson song? I can't remember what it is. There's a Michael Jackson song, and they whisper as well, like in the background of it. And I don't know if it's Man in the Mirror or something like that, but like, I'm always like, who the fuck is that whispering? And it's not. It's a song. But like, I don't like whispers, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, right,
yeah. So there we are. That's one of my picks. Again, it's a one that's just stuck in my mind for some reason, and it's a pretty horrific.
I mean, it's a great concept. I'd love to see that done with a kind of obviously modern budget and stuff like that.
I don't know if Basil's still working. I don't know if he's retired.
You know. He died, didn't he? 5 years ago.
Is he?
Yeah, they put him down. He got rabies.
Put him down. Yeah. Right then, Ben. So you've picked another classic. Who's this?
Another classic slasher. Like in the last, the first two that we did of these, I didn't give any shine to the slashers, and I was kind of purposely trying to go out of my way not to kind of do the easy option. But then these two episodes, I'm just like, fuck it, I'm going to do what I love, which is slashers. So yeah, of course, Leatherface being the slasher in question. So you got 1974's classic Texas Chainsaw Massacre by Toby Hooper. Gunnar Hansen played Leatherface in that original film, but of course, similar to Jason Michael and stuff, it's gone on to have different people playing and stuff. So, how many films are there now? So, I don't think I noted it down, but so there's 1, 2, 3. You might have to help me out with this, James. 2022 requel, 2003 reboot.
Yep. Sequel to the
2017 prequel.
The sequel to the 2003 reboot.
Yes.
As well. And I think there's a fourth in the original series. Isn't that the Matthew McConaughey one? The Next Generation or something?
Yes.
8, 9?
It's it's got more of a complicated kind of timeline than Halloween, to be fair. It's
ridiculous.
It's pretty mad. And it's a shame, because I think that, like, for me, that original film still holds up. Like, and I know we've spoke about Friday the 13th and stuff, and a lot of that hasn't aged well. But like, I genuinely believe Texas Chainsaw Massacre is still as scary and feels as kind of real, and it's almost one of these films that you can smell when you watch it. Like it creates atmosphere so well. It creates that kind of feeling of like heat and stench and rotting, and I just love it. I love the kind of camera shutter sound thing that's kind of synonymous with it. We were talking before on one of the last episodes about like lack of soundtrack.
Yeah.
And how that kind of creates, atmosphere and stuff. And this is another great example of that. I do have a soft spot for Texas 2, though, just because, similar to like the Child's Play franchise and Child's Play 3 and stuff, like it kind of took it into like a whole new genre, and it kind of it's a lot sillier. Texas Chainsaw, like really sillier, but it's I like how kind of tongue-in-cheek it is and how fun it is, and I love the character of. I like how the hitchhiker kind of became Chop Top in that film, and all the kind of you kind of get to know the family a bit more and how they kind of part of like chili competitions and twisted stuff like that, and it's just like again, Leatherface is just an absolute beast, just a brute, and the idea of this, 6 foot chunky guy waving a chainsaw around, wearing skin faces is just, there's no universe where that's not terrifying. So sign me up.
So, I don't think I've ever seen any of these films, the Texas Chainsaw Films. I think I started watching the first one, and I don't know.
Upset me.
Yeah, I had to switch off. But I am more inclined to watch it now because I've recently read a book. I think I messaged you about it, Ben. Did you hear what Ed Gein did or something? Who's basically the guy that they based Texas Chainsaw Massacre off. He made chairs out of people's skin and all this kind of jazz. It's horrific. So it has got us more interested, knowing that it's based on a true story. But I don't know. There's something when we talk about what freaks you out. There's something about the chainsaw really freaks me out about seeing that on screen, and I don't know why. But yeah,
I mean, honestly, the first, I just think it's a masterpiece, and just even in terms of like the set dressing and the way they made the house and everything like that, and it makes your bum fizz when the hitchhiker's in the car with them as well. Like it's just a real, and it's brutal. Like towards the end, like some of the kind of gore and stuff like that. Like just. Honestly, please watch that first one. If you're going to watch any, watch the first one. And then get drunk and watch the second one because that's silly.
Efren, are you a Texas Chainsaw fan?
I'm like you, Peter. I've seen bits and pieces of this movie. I remember there's one scene where the girl was in the freezer and they open it up and, she's trying to get out and that Leatherface, these types of movies just bother me that I don't want to watch them. God, this could really be happening to somebody right now, I think that's what pushes me not to see these movies. But I know all about this series. Like I said, Leatherface is just well known, through film history. And just seeing him come over with that chainsaw coming after people, I'm like, oh my God, this is not for me.
James, I would imagine you're a big fan.
So Ben's not going to like what I'm about to say. I don't dislike these movies. And I think I've seen a few. I've not seen all of them. I've seen a few of them, but I don't really love them. Like it's sort of this subgenre of horror, like gross, dirty. Like you were saying earlier, the hillbilly thing. I've just never really been attached to that in my horror, and I wouldn't disrespect someone that does it.
That's lucky because I'll chop your head off with a chainsaw.
Yeah. But it's just not. It's not the type of horror that I kind of feel attached to, and I really love. Like I wouldn't like Leatherface in my top 5 slasher villains, maybe not even top 10.
But it's funny,
have we seen the requel? Have you guys watched the latest?
I watched it because you told me what happens. You told me that something bonkers happens at the end. I watched the whole thing just to see it. And it was so, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's good. It's good fun. That one, the newer one, is definitely fun.
Yeah. Moving on, chaps. Okay. So, again, we've got some classics, some interesting choices. James, I am going to start with you because I don't think I've seen this movie either.
You picked the wrong one, Peter. It was the remake I was talking about.
Oh, right. So, what is it?
My Bloody Valentine 3D. Has anybody seen it?
I've heard about it. I never saw
it. Yeah.
You've seen it, yeah. So this is my kind of trashy pick. Because it's not a very good movie, but I just love watching it. I think it's hilarious and like. So it's a remake of an, I think, 80s Canadian horror film called My Bloody Valentine's. The killer in it is like a miner with a pickaxe,
right? And
it stars Jensen Ackles from Supernatural and The Boys, which is one of the reasons I love it so much.
Of course it does. Yeah, your little obsession.
Yeah. So it's about a guy called Tom Hanniger, and when he's younger, he's like the son of a mining CEO. And this miner gets trapped and kills loads of people in the mine, and then it's 10 years later, and the kills are starting up again, and it's got this kind of it's plays kind of a twist. So people who like the original, it changes it turns out later that's not the same killer. The killer died, and it's a person who's doing a not reenactment. What do you call it? Just call it copycat killer. Yeah. But it's got some of the most outlandishly, like it's similar to Friday the 13th 3D.
But when I was trying to find an image for it, James, and obviously I've picked the wrong one, but when I was trying to find an image, I clicked on the 3D thing, and there was a bit with somebody's eyeball shooting out the.
Yes, so there's a bit where the pickaxe goes behind and his eye pops out to the screen. There's a bit where a guy gets, I think, is Tom Atkins from The Fog, actually, and a few other John Carpenter movies. Halloween 3 gets a pickaxe up the thing. It's also got what was at the time the longest nude scene in a horror movie. There's I believe,
sign me up.
There's an 8-minute. God love Betsy Rue, I believe is the actress's name, but it's an 8-minute full frontal nude like chase sequence through like a motel, and it's just hilarious. It's trashy. It's stupid. It's just great fun, great kills. Really, I think an easy watch, definitely. And I have a DVD with the 3D glasses, so I get to watch it. So
has anybody else seen this one?
I've not seen it. I remember when it came out, I've seen like commercials of it. But James and Ben especially, do you guys, when horror movies come out, like in the movie theater, do you guys always want to go see them? Because I'm like the opposite. When I see a horror movie, I'm just like, no, I don't want to watch this.
I haven't got any friends. I haven't got any friends to go with who like horror like with me, unfortunately. So yeah, I tend to watch it alone. Yeah. Like I love them. My wife loves them as well. To be fair,
nice.
It's like like my wife, Star Wars, superheroes. She sort of leaves that, but horror's the one thing that we both kind of enjoy watching together. It's because she's sick in the head.
Good stuff. Not that your wife's sick in the head. That's not good stuff.
So you have seen it, Ben?
I think I've only seen the original.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's just the original I've seen, so I might need to revisit the 3D jobby.
I don't think I've seen it. I think I would have remembered the aesthetic of the miner. I think I would have remembered that, but I don't think I've seen it. Efren, interesting pick. You've gone for Rick Grimes' Walking Dead.
Yeah, I mean, it's not more like horror type film or movie or TV shows, like more suspenseful. When this series first came out in 2010, I mean, I had never even read the comic book. I figured you think I would have, but I just never did pick it up. And it has to do, obviously, it's the AMC, The Walking Dead. And this series, I am still watching it. It's going to end pretty soon. When it first came out, I mean, it was just the zombies, it was more graphic, when they're killing people, all the guts and everything, chewing heads and whatever they had to. It was more of a suspenseful than horror for me. Like every time I watch it, my heart would be thumping hard, it'd be nervousness. And that's why I picked this series. I think it's a classic series.
I agree. I think it's a superb series. I think it's lost its way over recent years. I've not seen the last season or so.
Certainly,
but,
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But in terms of horror and graphicness, that scene with Negan in the bat when he's got them all on the knees. Oh, my Lord.
That's not how it works. Now, I already told you people. First one's free. Then what I say? I said I will shut that shit down. No exceptions.
Horrific. Ben, are you a fan of Walking Dead?
Yeah, like I got to disagree, Efren. That it's horror, man. It's got zombies. Like, it's definitely horror. Yeah. I similar to yourself, Peter. Like, I think it's lost its way a bit. And I kind of, my relationship with Walking Dead's kind of gone a bit like that. So like, I remember being really into it at the beginning. That first season, John Bernthal, their relationship and all of that stuff. And then I kind of dipped, and then I think I got back into it where it was like the governor and all of that stuff. And then I think I kind of got into it in the prison stuff, and then I dipped again, and then I went back for the Negan stuff because that was some of the comics that I actually did read was the Negan stuff. So I always loved that character. I just love how kind of badass he is, and the design and the idea of this Lucille bat and stuff like that. But again, just kind of recently just not watched it or anything, and they've got like bloody stormtroopers in it now. So I'm really lost. I need to catch up, but Yeah, like from what I've seen, the production's always incredible. The zombies look amazing. Like I think the acting's always good across the board. I don't know why I've dipped. I guess it's slow, isn't it? It's very it's that long form storytelling, you know, and sometimes, you know, those sorts of shows don't always hold you for the whole time. You know, the whole time. So
I'm exactly the same, Ben. I've kind of lost my way with it a little bit. What about you, James?
Yeah, I was a diehard fan of this series for a while. It's one of those where I never watched it week to week. I'd always let a season end and then binge it, or I'd let 2 or 3 seasons come out and they'd be like, oh yeah, I like that show, and then I'd go back to it. And I kind of teetered off at the Negan stuff. And it's interesting because when that casting was announced, I was so excited about that. And I think that scene where he's introduced is one of the best in the show. But it sort of went downhill from there, I think. It's one I will go back, even though I know a lot of, like, I'm 4 seasons behind or 5 seasons behind, and I know a lot of stuff that's happened. I will eventually go back to watch it and cap it off.
Yeah, I think I'm the same. I think now we know it is actually ending. I'll probably go back and watch the last couple of seasons and binge them at some point and just see what they're like. Okay, moving on to my pick. My pick is again a one that I remember watching as a kid. I remember my friend getting this on, I think it was Betamax video, it wasn't even VHS, and we're sitting and watching it. And it's obviously it's John Carpenter's The Fog from 1980.
Fantastic choice.
It's your goal, Blake. My grandfather stole it from you. I'm the one who must answer for it.
Tremendous movie. I mean, it hasn't necessarily aged well if you go back and watch it, but the special effects, the practical effects are brilliant. There's some phenomenal death scenes with hooks through eyes and things, and basically it's the story of, you know, these guys who come back in the fog one night to terrorize the town, basically, all based on I think it's there's a relative of someone that did them an injustice at some point 100 years ago.
Are they like ghosts or zombies?
The kind of zombie ghosty things, yeah, they're like a mix of it, to be honest.
Zombie ghosties.
Zombie ghosties, yeah. I think that's what the official title is. Yeah. So no, that they have physical form and they look like zombies. They're like decaying flesh and rotten and stuff, and they travel on the fog, as it were, and then they just vanish and things. Jamie Lee Curtis is in it, obviously, and it's just a great film. And there's a good kind of jump scare at the very end of the movie. That took us by surprise at the time. But again, it's this reality, living in England, you know, fog and murk and stuff like that. There's something that we see quite often. So it's that fear that actually something might be in there waiting for you, you know. It's worth watching. There is a remake, which isn't that bad, but I would always advocate watching the original first.
Tom Welling from Smallville?
Yeah,
is
from
it?
Smallville. Yeah. Anybody seen this original then? James, you seen it?
I saw it for the first time about 3 years ago. There was like a John Carpenter re-release in the cinemas, and I didn't know what it was about or anything. I just knew it was a John Carpenter. I love John Carpenter. It's just sort of a blind spot for me. So I went to see it, and the second I realized that it's about ghost pirates, I was so happy. And just some really great characters and performances. Adrian Barbeau as Stevie Wayne, the kind of radio DJ, and Tom Atkins as Nick Castle. Just a thoroughly fun, hokey at times, but just hilarious and at times scary film. So yeah,
worth watching.
You said Ghost Pirates?
Ghost
Pirates. Yeah.
I've never seen this, guys.
You've never seen this?
You've
never seen this.
Oh,
and like obviously John Carpenter, you know, fan. So it's one of those ones that's always eluded me. But yeah, I need to. I mean, I'm sold on Ghost Pirates. Zombie ghosty pirates.
Zombie ghosty pirates. Yeah.
Well, we're
and of course
checking
he does the theme as well, of course, as he always does. So yeah, a great theme to it as well.
No, that's not the theme. No.
Oh, okay.
Ben, who have you picked?
So from one John Carpenter, can't get it out, to another. So of course, Halloween, with the original being back in '78. Again, another franchise that's just kind of ran away with itself to good and bad places sometimes. 13 films in total. Of course, you had sort of weird moments with Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, kind of not being Halloween as you sort of might know it, with Michael Myers and stuff. You've got like alternative timelines now, so like H2O and Resurrection, and of course, you know, like the sequels 2, 3, and 4 and stuff. Not canon anymore because, of course, we have the sort of requel, as it's the phrase is so being coined, and Rob Zombie's 2 films as well. So yeah, a lot has been done with this, but again, I think that's just credit to an amazing villain, an amazing kind of monster, centerpiece being Michael Myers. Again, it's a big dude in a kind of iconic looking outfit, very simple, you know, the blue boiler suit. I think it went on to be green or whatever, but yeah, blue boiler suit originally with the repainted ghost-like William Shatner mask. Just superb. You know, you can't beat a classic. And like that original film, again, like John Carpenter is just, he's just a master at creating suspense. He did very inventive stuff for the time in terms of that kind of point of view opening scene where you're looking through Michael's eyes as a young child, obviously, as he kind of murders his sister and things like that. And yeah, just like, I think what made Michael quite special as well is, as opposed to some of these kind of boogeymen originally, like he was stalking in the day, so there were these, you know, now iconic shots of like a bush with, you know, Michael just kind of stood to the side of it and stuff like that. Like, just terrifying, really, you know, really quite scary stuff. And again, you know, as time's gone on, he's been resurrected, you know, and survived all kinds of ailments, you know. But the requel, I think, did an amazing job to kind of recapture the suspense of the first one and recapture some of those things that make the first one so good. It sort of reinvented Laurie as a character, you know, to kind of make her this, you know, kind of grizzled, old, PTSD ridden kind of, you know, woman, and just kind of her performance was incredible, really. And it's quite funny when you go back and you watch like H2O and see the character of Laurie and how different, you know, those interpretations are. I know, right? So yeah, like very, very interesting sort of franchise to have a play and visit some of the old ones. But I like Nick Castle's obviously the OG Michael, but James Duke Courtney, for me, has just done such an incredible job. Like, he really brings a velocity to Michael's attacks, like a kind of ferocious energy, like almost like he's a big animal, you know. And I really enjoy that. And obviously, it's the way it's shot and everything like that as well. But I'm sort of really hoping James Duke Courtney gets a moment in the spotlight in this next one, and judging from the trailers, it looks like that might happen, so I'm quite looking forward to that. Was slightly disappointed by Halloween Kills. Yeah, I just kind of felt like he didn't really do anything that new, like, and it just kind of, it felt like filler. Yeah,
but some good kills though.
I was going to say, I went with my wife.
The flashback scene was incredible as well.
Exactly,
and the scene with the fluorescent tube, I thought was just superb.
Oh, that was terrific.
I loved every minute. But much like yourself, Ben, I'm going to be a lonely little man in the cinema because my wife's refused to go and see it because she hated it. She thought it was rubbish. But I will definitely be saying I absolutely love this franchise. I think it's an amazing series, and I've really enjoyed the 2 requels. I thought they've been superb. I think there's something for me. I think it's the fluorescent light tube bit as well. It's the almost childlike quality of him when he does a kill and he kind of tilts his head when he's looking at the dead bodies in front of him and stuff.
Yeah, I mean he's playful, isn't he? You know how he kind of mounts people to walls, and obviously in the first one where he kind of puts the blanket over his head, like as you say, there's almost a child in there, and there's interesting moments as well where he'll not kill babies and stuff, and very interesting kind of choices around the kind of character there. And I think that's for me, like it's this weird kind of backwards morality that you have with slasher films, where it's almost like they are getting the people that kind of deserve it, you know, like it's all like the film's always like kind of dressed with douchebags for the killer to kind of kill. I do think Halloween's slightly different because, and especially Laurie is such a character that you really support in that first one, and then in you know the requel. Like I really think it's a character that you get behind. So I think Michael does feel like more of a villain in that. But all these sequels and stuff, it's just you know, young people having sex and doing drugs, and you know, kill them all.
Kill them all. Yeah. And on that note, Ephraim, have you seen many of these movies?
Well, now that I know that there are two separate movies, Friday the 13th and Halloween. I loved Halloween when it first came out.
So that's Michael there. There you go.
Yeah. When Halloween first came out with Jamie Lee Curtis, I love that movie when it first. I think I've seen like the first 2 or 3 of them. You know, I haven't seen any new ones. You know, I may want to check out this last one. But they say, you know, the end. So I think I may check it out.
You want to watch the 2 before it than really the
2018 Halloween. That's the one.
Are they? So they're like sequels to that one then?
Yes, there's one,
like
and then
trilogy, isn't it? Really, its own trilogy.
2018.
It's a requel. So what it does is it erases everything that's happened from Halloween 2. So this is the new Halloween 2, basically.
Oh wow! Did they mention that in the movie?
It's a multiverse of Michaels now.
Yeah. Huh. So there's 2 movies before this one that's coming out that I should check out before I go see this last one. Okay. Yeah. All right, I'll do. I love the series. You know, just the slash type movies I really like. I think I like them more because they don't scare me as much as like when it has to do with evil entities like demons. You know, that stuff in movies I just don't like that type of movie. It just bothers me too much. But slasher type movies, I do enjoy them more.
I'm definitely happy this came up on this episode because Halloween was, when I was asked 5 favorite horror movies, Halloween, first one to come up. I think that is probably my favorite horror movie. And I remember when I was like 14 or so, me and my friend renting it on Halloween day and thinking, there's no way a movie from the 70s is going to scare me. And absolutely, we watched it in the day and I was absolutely terrified. And I just, this sort of, the movie almost plays like Where's Wally, where he could be standing in a scene and the movie's not acknowledging that he's even there. Like he's just standing in a window or something. That's something I always love when movies do.
The breath that gets me as well when you hear him in the mask.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And one of the most iconic theme songs of all time as well. Just
I've got that on my like playlist as like under like pop songs because it's so damn listenable, you know. Like it's I
think music is just as important as the film as far as scariness is. The right music has to go along with the right film. If it's off, then I think that, you know, it won't do well for the film.
Okay, guys. So moving on. That was our first part of this video. We are going to fill in the rest of our picks, and that'll be coming in part 4. There's a bit of a hint there as to what one of those characters may be. So please do make sure you come back to watch that video. That will be released next week. So, guys, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for taking part. We've, I think, covered some interesting movies. By the time we finished all 4 of these, there's going to be a lot of what we're going to do next Halloween. What we're going to talk about? We'll have to revisit in some way.
30 videos.
30 videos. Right, guys. So we'll say good night and thank you very much. Bye, everyone.